Linda Denton is an amazing coach and organization development specialist. I've known her for a while, and she just has incredible knowledge. Her presentations are right on so that people really have a good takeaway. We learned a lot about immunity to change today, and she just continues to inspire me with all of the information and, applicable techniques that she uses.
How many of you have had the experience of wanting to change, having a goal that was so important to you that on something that you wanted to change? How many of you experienced that? Okay. And how many of you, didn't change? And how many of you had an experience that you didn't expect in the change? Okay. So one thing that we know is that change can be hard. Change is not easy. And we are bombarded on a regular basis with media that says you can be thinner, you can be smarter, you can exercise more and be healthier if you just follow this 1, 2, 3 schedule. You can do it immediately and quickly. We are bombarded with this kind of information. And yet, in the United States right now, we have a major issue with weight. So it's not so easy. So what we know is that people make goals to change every day, to lose more weight, to do more better performance evaluations, to not procrastinate, to be better listeners. They make plans all the time. And as coaches, we see people struggle with this process of change, and they don't change. And what I love about this concept, immunity to change, is that this is difficult. It's acknowledged at the beginning that change can be difficult and that not everybody can make the change immediately. And it's very kind language, immunity to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you on a journey. And we're going to go through the process. This is a very experiential process to show you how the immunity to change process works. What I'm going to try to do is I want to do a teach piece, have you do your part on the maps, and then we'll do a quick little couple questions, and then we'll move to the next part.
I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to take in Linda's talk tonight on immunity to change. I'm not a professional coach, but I'm a scientist by day, and I'm a peer coach to my other scientists. And I've really gained a lot from this talk tonight because I find that it's more applicable to just change. It's really immunity to being stuck, immunity to action. And so I was able to apply that and have some aha moments myself tonight.
So all of you should have in front of you a map. It looks like this. So everybody grab at least one, and let's go through the slides. So first of all, what I'd like you to know that the immunity change is steeped in research. This is Dr. Keegan and Dr. Leahy. They've been doing research on change and adult development for over 30 years. And the immunity to change evolved from a theory and research that Robert Keegan had been doing around adult development. And Lisa Leahy is an educator. And Lisa said to Robert one day, she said, well, how can we make this visible and accessible? How can we take this theory and make it concrete so that other people can have access to this to change? And so what they did is they started creating a process so that is visible on what change looks like and how we get stuck in change. In this mini presentation, you're going to get the experience of creating your own map, and you might see, as we go through this, your own block. And we're also looking at this in the context as you being coaches and working with clients who may be stuck also in their process of change. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move you into what do you do after the map. Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy have been running a MOOC, a massive open online curriculum program through Harvard. When I took it at the beginning of this year, there were 81,000 people that participated. I know they have over 100,000 in the one right now, and they're going to do it again next year. And you can go through this workshop and basically learn some of the foundations of immunity to change. And then if you want to do more, there's more that you can do after that. Before we look at the map, what I'd like to do too is share with you a distinction between technical and adaptive change. And I think this is really important for coaches in particular, because most of the change that we do would be considered technical. And that is because it's like if you needed to learn to build an engine, if you wanted to become a pilot, you would study, you would practice flying the plane, and then you would get really good about being a pilot. Adaptive change is different. What adaptive change involves is you changing your mindset, which involves your beliefs, your attitude, and your values. And so before you can change your behavior, you have to change your mindset. Another way you can look at this is think of your brain as a container, and you've got to change the stuff inside of you in order to make some changes that we make in life, especially changes where we're stuck. Okay? So the distinction between technical and adaptive becomes very, very important in this process. Okay, so here's where we're going to start. So take out your maps. When you look at the map, on the left side, far left, is a gray column. And what you're going to do is you're going to write down ideas for a self-improvement goal. And I think we said in the invitation it'd be a great idea to come with a goal that's important for you. So I'll just share with you for just a minute what we're talking about. So think of a goal that's really important for you. Something that if you changed about yourself, that you would be a better version of yourself. That you might feel some part of your life changed because of this goal. And what we do with the 6-column map is that in the first column, what you do is you could write warm up at the top, and then what you can do is you can write ideas. So I'll give you just a couple minutes to write some ideas, and then I'm going to move you to the next column. So when you teach this, if you're facilitating to a group, you might have people envision that they have a group of friends that they've brought together, maybe 5 or 6 people that are important to you. And you ask them, what one change, if I made this change, would make me an even better person than I am now? You could think of them as your virtual 360. Can I move you to the next column? Column 1, you'll see a 1 at the top. At column 1, what you're going to do is you're going to write at the very top of the column, self-improvement goal. And then you're going to answer this question. What is your top priority or high-level self-improvement goal? And what you want to do is you want to pick a goal that maybe you struggled with in the past. And a lot of people talk about things like work-life balance. They talk about, a lot of people talk about weight. You know, they're struggling with weight. They're struggling with procrastination, decision-making. So there's certain things that we struggle with in life that are difficult for us. And this map becomes a richer experience for you the more difficult and important this goal is. The more powerful the goal you write down, that means to you a lot. That if you achieve this goal, the map will have the biggest impact on you. Oftentimes people put down goals that they've tried to achieve before and they struggled with those. Or maybe they felt stuck. So it's a goal that you might have felt stuck. So when you write your goal, you're going to start with a lead-in. And the lead-in says, I am committed to getting better at. It might be, I am committed to getting better at. And then it's affirmative. So it's not a negative. I am committed to getting better at. Maybe more work-life balance. I'm committed to getting better at having a healthier life. I'm committed to getting better at more balance in my life. And you want to list 3 reasons why this is important for you so that you're really anchoring this goal. The interesting thing about being in a program with 81,000 people is that you were able to see all the different ideas that they had on development goals. And what was fascinating was the number of people that talk about confidence. They're looking to have more confidence. Work-life balance was really important. Procrastination and decision-making came up constantly. A lot of people came up with being healthier, having a better weight, exercising more, taking better care of themselves. A lot of people came up with listening also, listening deeply at work or to the family. The beauty of this program is that there are also criteria for each of the columns that make sure that what you're putting down is a richer goal. The criteria to have or guideline for a quality entry includes, is this true for you? So this is asking you, is this goal true for me? Is this goal true that it's something that I really am wanting to achieve? Does it implicate just you? So it's not a goal about somebody else, it's not a goal about your team, it's a goal about you. Also, is it stated in the affirmative? Is there room for improvement? And on a scale of 1 to 5, it's a 4 or 5. Here's an example. A self-improvement goal. So this is, I'm committed to getting better at being a more effective listener and listen deeply. And then the person has listed 3 reasons why this is important for them. So this is what the map would look like as you're completing it. Well, let's check out what happens in column 2. Okay, in this column, what I'm going to do is ask you to tell on yourselves. So what you're going to do in thinking about your goal, your self-improvement goal, and how you have this goal that's really important for you, then what I'm going to ask you to do is to list in column 2 all the things you do and you don't do instead of your goal. So the things you're doing and not doing instead of your goal. So for example, if I put a little video camera on your head during the day and you said you had a goal not to procrastinate, then what that little video camera is going to show me and you is all the behaviors you do instead of work on your goal. So it might show that you go for walks, take naps, watch TV, email, eat, walk some more, feed the cats. That's me. It might show that you're doing everything but your goal. So you're doing lots of things to distract you from your goal. So this shows where we get a little stuck. So it's things that you do. So you're going to make a list. So in order to do the rest of the map, you're going to need to have at least 5 or 6 things that you can put on column 2 that you do or don't do instead of focusing on your goal. If you think about it, a lot of times we set goals and we tell people we really want to achieve them. We tell ourselves we really want to achieve them. And there's something sometimes that's holding us back. So the next slide shows the guidelines for high quality entries. And so you're listing concrete behaviors, not emotions. This is observable to others. Includes lots of details if you can. And these things are working against your column 1 self-improvement goal. So you don't worry about why you do it, or you don't worry about what you should be doing, or how you can accomplish your goal. This is just a list. It's an inventory, a simple inventory of what you become aware of that you do. The thing about these maps too, I'll tell you, is that this isn't a situation where you do one map and that's it. This is the process is you can keep doing your map over and over, and working with somebody to help you through it is better. But you'd be surprised at what keeps emerging. So my first map was so-so. My 5th map felt like I'd been kicked in the gut. It doesn't matter what our goal is, there's things that we can divert ourselves. And when you think about it, we do that a lot. So what I'm going to have you do now is going to feel very odd. It's kind of a little bit of a U-turn. So the next column, the third column, you're going to write at the top, hidden competing goal. And then what you're going to do is you're going to imagine doing the opposite of everything in your column 2 goals. You're going to imagine doing the opposite, and then what you're going to do is you're going to focus on the doubts, the worries, the fears that you have. And in the little box that you see in column 3, above that line you're going to write worry box. And you're going to fill all your concerns, worries, anxieties in there. Everything negative in that box. One way to look at this is we have a goal to have a desired image. We have an image that we want everyone to think of us as. And then there's that image of us that is undesirable, that we don't want people to know about, and that's pretty much what you're going to put in that box. It's like, I will look like a slacker, I'll look stupid, I'll be replaceable, I'll be controlled and dominated. So you're taking each behavior in column 2, and you're thinking, what would it be? What would I worry about? What would my concern be if I did the opposite? On mine, when I had mine was on selling, because I refused to get out and sell my business. And instead I talked about selling for a year and a half. And this was after my business, when I first started it, was all referral. And then at some point I kind of backed away from it, and then I went back into it again, and I realized that I was going to have to sell. And so I started just talking about selling. But I didn't do anything. I talked about going to meetings, networking. I didn't do anything. I talked about picking up the phone and calling people, but I didn't do anything. I talked a great sales thing by myself. I didn't share with anybody else. My worry box was full of things like, I'll look stupid. What if I make a mistake when I say something? Nobody will hire me. And it became dire to where I wanted to go crawl under the bed by the time I was done listing all the fears that came up, and I was stunned that I had all those fears about going out and selling. So when I looked at doing the opposite of the emails, the washing the floor, feeding the cats, and all the distractions I had, what I realized was what my fears were. That I was fearful of looking stupid, not being prepared, looking like a loser. I mean, I had the whole gambit. So does anybody have columns like that? Because I don't want to feel all alone. Oh, good. Now I feel better. Thank you for joining me. This is not your typical change initiative. I will tell you, when you do it as a normal facilitation, there's lots of stories and other things that are told as part of this. Because of the time, we're just going to give you the experience of actually just seeing how the map unfolds. These fears, these anxieties, they feel real to us. They are ours. They are part of our system of thinking. And they've somehow snuck inside of us to distort our thinking. So now you have your worries, and you think I might let you off the hook, right? Now that I have you sitting in this worry box and you're wondering, why on earth did I pay to come for this? I'm going to take you deeper. So we have an example of the worry box, and I'm just going to move to the next slide. So under the worry box is where you're going to write your hidden commitment. I'll look like a slacker, then I'm committed to not looking like a slacker. So all you're doing is writing I am committed to in front. And a lot of yours will say not. I'm committed to not. And occasionally you'll get a weird grammatical goof that will say I'm committed to not. When I was training at Harvard, we kept running into that, and we kept running around asking Robert Keegan if we were doing it right. And he said, yes. Just add I'm committed to not in front of it. Okay? So you're going to take each of your worries and you're going to list that. I think I wrote at one point, I'm committed to not being successful, and almost had a heart attack when I wrote that. I couldn't believe that just popped up on my 5th map. I was like, what? This is a process where you can go deeper and deeper, and so I'm not expecting you all to go, the lights came on and I get it right now. But you have to just have the experience. I think this also gives you some perspective on working with clients that you're coaching that feel stuck. And sometimes in corporations, what happens is when someone's stuck and doesn't change, the corporation thinks there's something wrong with them and they should be fired, instead of looking at what else is going on with this person. Where are they stuck? How can you help them get unstuck? And because change takes time, it's a development process, and oftentimes we're being hired to go into companies where they say, I want you to change this person in 2 months. And we take assignments like that sometimes, and that in fact is not possible. We can do technical change. We can teach them how to do get an app to maybe have their goals organized, but you can't teach them to change in 2 months, right? It doesn't happen. Because again, we got to go back to that mindset, right? Okay, what I want you to do is take and look at your map, if you've had the opportunity to fill it out. And I'm going to go here. If you look at this map, you'll see that there's little arrows swirling around. And what the arrow does, when you're working with a client or you're doing this on your own, if you want to do it outside of here, what you see is that your column 3 goals are directly competing with your column 1 goal. And in fact, your column 3 goals, your hidden commitment goals, are preventing you from achieving your column 1 goal. Can you see that? How it kind of goes around? And the feeling when this is really put down where it's solid for people is it feels like 1 foot on the brakes and 1 foot on the gas. And so you have this tension, you feel this push-pull. So you have this sense, I want to achieve a goal. And you create the goal and you state it. I want that goal. And you tell everybody you want that goal. And then you have these hidden behaviors that come up. You have the things that you do and don't do instead of working on the goal. You have fears that you're not conscious of that are keeping you looking almost like you're not moving, keeping you still, keeping you paralyzed or stuck. And then you realize that you're committed to not succeeding, to not achieving that goal. And this isn't conscious. This is actually one of those times and one of those processes that takes you under, the iceberg that they show, and it's a little bit over the water, on top of the water, and then below is really where your unconscious is. That's the kind of work you're doing here. As you're doing this, you're looking for what is preventing people from moving and seeing if it can emerge. And so there should feel, when you look at it, this push-pull. First few times I did it, I felt some push-pull. As I really got deeper into the work, and we were coached when I was being trained on this when I went in June. And with the coaching, what happened is I had somebody reflect and mirror back to me what I was writing, and I kept thinking, that can't be. I'm really not saying that or thinking this, and yet I was, and a lot more stuff kept emerging.
This immunity to change tool is probably one of the richest tools I've seen in coaching.
Okay, so let's try it out and go to the next column. So the 4th column, you're going to write on the top, big assumption. This is the lever to move you out of the kind of paralyzing place you are when you're stuck. And you have this kind of push-pull where you're trying to reach your goal, but you're not able to because there's something inside of you, like Maggie was talking about in the book. So she was not doing the things really needed to do the book. And so some of you, again, might think, well, she just needs to do SMART goals or create a plan, but it's really more than that. There's some assumption that we have. There's an assumption that we have that we believe is true that is really keeping us stuck. And the way you come about the assumption is that what you do is you take each of the items that you wrote in column 3, where you wrote, I am committed to, and you're going to change them to if-then statements. So, for example, I think I have a couple here. I assume that if I'm not in control, then I will be seen as weak. So I start out with I assume and if-then. I assume that if I'm not in control, then I will not be seen as a leader. I assume that if I'm not in control, I might as well go home. I have a client that's a general manager of a company, and he was doing this, and what he wrote, he wrote, I assume that if I can't withhold information, because it became very clear he was withholding information from his staff, because that's what made him feel powerful. And he said, I assume if I can't withhold information from my staff, I might as well just get fired. Actually, he laid his head on the table. He said, I might as well just give up. Because that was so important to him, and he wasn't clear until we did the map on how important it was for him to keep control. So take and see if you can take some of your commitments and turn them into assumptions. To me, the easiest way to do this is just to start out, I assume that whatever the commitment is, if, then. So these are our beliefs, and we believe that they're true. And they hold us stuck. Again, you could have 10 people with the same goal, and they're going to have different assumptions. They're going to have different fears. They're going to have different commitments because they're unique to you. Do you mind if I use you as an example? Thank you.
Not at all.
I knew you'd let me. Thank
Great
you.
example for bad behavior.
So what Maggie's doing is she has an assumption, and this is true. She has an assumption about her writing, and so to her, this is true. And the only way to disprove this is for her to go explore it. And I'm going to tell you more how to do that in a minute, but what you can see is that in order for her to change, it's an adaptive change, and it will require her to change her mindset, her beliefs, right? Her values and her attitudes. So to change her behaviors, she has to change her mindset first. And this is what makes this coaching so much different than any other type of coaching you're doing. In addition, you are not going to do this in 2 months. This is looking at making a change on one thing and could take 4 to 6 months to change. And that's just with coaching and following a full arc of coaching around this topic. So what happens is when we look at our big assumptions, that's why it says it's a big bad. It's a big bad time, big bad conclusion, right? Because it's like scary. You're thinking this makes no sense at all. This is embarrassing. There's no way I'm going to show anybody this. Something must be wrong with me. If you think about it, we walk around with assumptions on what we believe to be true, things that we believe are true, all day long. We make assumptions all day long. And didn't a lot of you learn about assumptions in coaching school? About making assumptions? Well, this is what we do. So we make an assumption about a person. We make an assumption about ourselves. We make an assumption about a situation. And we say, well, it's true. It's true. And we don't stop and think, well, maybe it's not. We don't stop and think maybe it's not. So my assumption, too, on my business was ridiculous because I'd already been running a successful business. And yet, that assumption snuck in there. And I wanted to know who put it in there. So I was like, who did that to me? Who put that assumption in there? And what you find through all of the coaching that can happen is that a lot of these beliefs that we have, these assumptions, are based on something maybe that was cumulative when we were kids. It was some experience that got distorted. So there's some distortion in our thinking, and we have a grip on this assumption. So the assumption that Maggie's talking about, she's holding a tight grip on this. And in order to loosen that grip, to use this as a lever, she needs to then start looking at this assumption outside of herself, as an object, something to observe. I'm not a therapist, but my sense of everything I've read and studied on this and with adult development, I think those assumptions just keep sneaking up on us. And I think what happens is we learn a different way of approaching them. So to me, that's the key. So let's take a minute and go look. This is what the full map would look like when you're done. And then let's go over here and look at what you do. So what I do with my clients is that when they come up with an assumption, we pick one assumption to work on. And then what we do is we have them do a test. But we don't have them test it right away. And again, this is not the typical way that you would approach change. I've got this one client. Her assumption is that if she uses her voice and states her mind, states her position on things, that she could get fired. She'll have more problems in her relationship with others if she really uses her voice, really says what's on her mind. And so she doesn't. She keeps it inside, and when she gets stressed, she gets rash all over her body when she doesn't speak up. So I told her, take that one assumption that if I speak up, that I will have a bad result, and hold it. Take it, make it into an object, and hold it in your hand. So she has a visual she uses of like a little ball or a little bird that she's put in her hand. And I said, what you want to do is you want to loosen the grip that this assumption has on you, and you want to get it out so you can observe it. And so the test, they use a SMART goal abbreviation, but it's not the typical way, because you'll notice it says safe, modest, actionable, research-driven, and to test your big assumption. So what we've done after we explored what assumption for her to test, we created a test. And her first test, I said to her, is what she's going to do is she's not going to like go out and have the first big conversation with someone and tell them what she thinks. She's going to just dip her toe in the water. She's going to have a little test. And in this test, what I ask her to do is start observing her thinking, her feeling, and her behaviors around her big assumption. So to start noticing when the assumption is present, and when the assumption is not. And then again, what is she thinking? What is she feeling? And what are her behaviors? What are her actions? So she can start getting in touch with her body and her mental thoughts, her self-talk. So she's aware of behaviors, because we have behaviors that go along with our thinking and our feeling. So if you put it here and you can observe it, then it becomes this object, and over time you loosen the grip on the object, and you start noticing, oh yeah, there's that big assumption. So I will give you an example of myself. So after I played with this, and I finally thought, I'm going to go to one of those networking groups that I signed up for like 10 times before. I'm going to go to one of them, and I'm going to do all the things that I know I should do to sell myself. And I went there, and first of all, it was the wrong context. It was the wrong group for my services. And after I listened to 20 people say they were coaches, I decided there was no way I was going to introduce myself as a coach. However, by the time it got to me, I couldn't think of an alternative. So I just didn't say anything. I just went. And then people exchanged cards, and there's actually someone that said that they, I heard all kinds of things, including a couple that do, for $1,000, they'll take you through 4 sessions and make your marriage amazing. And all I could think of is, where am I in this group? But I made every mistake in my worry box, every single one. And my self-talk, I looked at it and I started laughing while I was there. I finished my meal, went and grabbed a cookie, because I love cookies, grabbed my cookie and told my friend, you know what, this is not my tribe. I got in my car, I noticed my thinking, my feeling, and my behaviors, found this utterly hilarious. And I said, look, you just made every mistake and no one killed you. You didn't die on the spot. No one said, oh my God, she's an idiot. No one said that. No one said, don't ever come back here again. No one said anything, but that assumption was so strong for me, and I could trace it back to some family situations. I absolutely could see why I would think that way. But it didn't make it go away. My rational mind could not make that go away. I had to instead experience it. So over time, over a few months, what's happened is I don't hardly think about it anymore. And what it's taught me is that when new assumptions come up, I have the ability now to go, no, wait a minute. Wait a second. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what's my behavior? Where's my distortion in thinking? And how can I loosen my grip on this? And this is where coaching comes in. Because you can coach someone through this process of change, and they can make, and the clients I have that are doing all the work, it's incredible. They're changing things that they never thought they could. The client I have on using her voice, what's happened is her subtle, slow change is changing all the relationships around her because of her change, not that she had to change them. It's informing change around her. It's extraordinary to watch. And I actually get more excited probably than she does every time she comes in, because the change in her is phenomenal. So this isn't work that you're going to do on everyone you work with. It takes time. Not everybody's ready for it. And in fact, that's okay, because that just means that they're not ready. There's no judgment. It's just not the right time. But there are people that you meet and you think that this would be helpful. This would help get them unstuck. I want to see Maggie write her book. I want to see Claudia write her book. And she wants to write one too. They both have books in them. So we want to see them do that. So we want to see them get beyond whatever this thinking is that's preventing them, that's keeping them stuck, that's preventing them from moving.
So tonight's training for me was invaluable once again. I've had the opportunity to work with Linda in the past, and tonight, again, I uncovered a new awareness around this, something that's really valuable for me to be able to work on. I'm really excited to take this information home tonight.
If you want to continue what you started today, you can read the Immunity to Change book. I imagine that if you go back through it, you'll see some differences now. I couldn't read it the first time until I took the workshop, and then I went back and read it, and it just came alive. And now when I go back and read it again, it's even more powerful. You can apply self-observation techniques. So any of you can take and use those wonderful skills we learned to observe, and use just plain old self-observation, and observe yourself. And again, focusing on your thinking, your feeling, and your behaviors. Keegan calls it also head, heart, gut, and hands. Hands for the action. You can design and run your first test, just basically what I just shared with you. So you could think of something simple and easy just to test your big assumption to see if it's true. In the workshop that they do, they talk about a guy named, I think it's David, and his concern was if he spoke up, he'd get fired. And instead of going through the whole process, he spoke up right away as soon as he did his goal, and he got fired. So some assumptions are true. So that's important to know that. Some assumptions are true, right? So it's not like we're advocating that you run off and go do that. Also, you can work with a coach that knows ITC, and maybe somebody that has experience even with a book would be good. And remember something, change is a journey. And one of the things I have all my clients talking about is change is messy. It's not this linear step-by-step process. It's messy. It's got emotions and feelings and thinking and distortion, and it's just messy. That's why we love being coaches, I think. And development happens incrementally over time. So Keegan talks about go slow to go far. So you're not in a huge rush. What you're doing is you're wanting to overturn your immunity to change. That's the objective of all this. So thank you again. I was so grateful for you all being here.
Linda's done a great job explaining it tonight. As coaches, I think one of the things that we do is we facilitate change, but a lot of times we try to do it quickly. And what we get frustrated by is our clients get stuck. And what this tool does is it enables us to allow our clients to actually see how they're getting stuck and then put them through a process that goes at a more reasonable pace and allow them to really change. So it takes a little bit more time to change, but it's real change and it's lasting change.
I've used Linda Denton as a professional leadership coach for the last several years, and she's really helped me gain some self-awareness, some ability to ask powerful questions of myself and find out what is inhibiting my action and where can I actually make better impact.
It's one of the most powerful coaching tools I've seen.
I've really appreciated the counsel of Linda Denton.
I'm so grateful to Linda for this process tonight.
So I would encourage anyone to work with Linda.